Another exciting news. Port Edwards will soon have an extracurricular jazz band. Members wishing to be a part of it will meet and practice together Mondays and Wednesdays after school.
The high school forensics members recently performed at their first meet, the Sub-District Festival at Assumption, and this coming Saturday, the forensics team will be traveling to Spash to perform at the District Festival. They will be competing to qualify for the state competition in Madison.
Spring sports are underway with track starting their first week of practice this week. Next Monday, the girls softball team will begin practicing with the boys baseball season beginning the week after. Our students are excited for spring sports to begin and are looking forward to an excellent season.
Thanks for inviting us to come speak and fill you in on what's happening in our school. We hope you have a great night.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you guys.
Did any of you participate
welcome
in
to
solo
stay.
ensemble?
Yep, I did.
We both did.
You both
Okay.
did, good,
If
good.
your level of excitement wishes to be enhanced, you could certainly stay, but
Yes.
I'm
You could
suspecting
certainly
not.
stay.
Well,
Okay,
they may be
discretion is the
performing.
better part of valor. You're good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item is report from Dana Kipps, athletic trainer.
I'd like to welcome Danny. Danny is one of the Port Edward School District's athletic trainers. And March is National Athletic Training Month. So Danny is with us tonight to share some information about her career and what other athletic trainers do.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Is this okay for me to stand here?
Sure.
Okay, sounds good. My name is Danny Kilps. I'm, as Jim said, Port Edwards athletic trainer. This is my 6th year with Port Edwards as their athletic trainer, and I also help provide coverage for Nakusa as kind of a dual athletic trainer there, as I have one other coworker that helps me there. Basically what I wanted to come and kind of promote today is National Athletic Training Month and just the importance of having an athletic trainer in schools. We go to cover athletic event coverage and are there for anything from prevention of injury, wellness promotion, we examine and diagnose injury that happens on site, immediate and emergent care, along with that, going with that is therapeutic modality or exercise. If someone were to get hurt, we kind of manage those on site the best we can, or decide whether we need to refer that out to a doctor or different specialty provider. So I do have a proclamation to read just stating that March is National Athletic Training Month, so bear with me in the wordiness of it.
Yep.
So,
We know
Yeah.
we know.
I'm sure you guys are
proclamation.
very well versed in proclamations.
We get proclaimed almost every month by
Yeah.
someone.
I'm sure.
Got one coming
There is,
later.
one is.
We do.
Oh, there you go.
You're just the first
You're
one
warming us
tonight.
up, Danny.
Joyous day.
Wait till you get the one that's following you.
Okay, I'll be
You set a good standard.
very surprised.
Yeah, probably.
So whereas the Wisconsin Athletic Trainers Association was founded as an organization committed to the education of its members and the enhancement of the profession of athletic training, creating better health care for the population it serves. And whereas athletic trainers from professional, collegiate, and high school teams, industries, physician offices, rehabilitation clinics, and every branch of the United States military work together to promote and practice the profession of athletic training within Wisconsin and across the United States. Whereas athletic trainers have a long history of providing quality health care for athletes and persons engaged in regular physical activity. And whereas athletic trainers are highly skilled healthcare professionals who specialize in immediate, acute, and emergency care, examination, assessment, and diagnosis, injury prevention, risk management, therapeutic intervention, and rehab of injury and illness. And whereas the National Athletic Trainers Association represents and supports more than 45,000 members of the athletic training profession, including one athletic trainer that provides coverage with Port Edwards School District. And whereas leading organizations concerned with athletic training and the healthcare have united in a common commitment to raise public awareness of the importance of the profession of athletic training and the role of athletic trainers in the provision of quality healthcare services. And whereas it is the desire of Port Edward School District to promote improved healthcare for athletes and all of those who engage in physical activity.
Now, therefore, I got a copy. Thank you, Danny. Therefore, I, James Bena, District Administrator of the Port Edward School District, do hereby proclaim the month of March as National Athletic Training Month and call upon staff and students at Port Edward School District to join me in recognizing athletic trainers for their honorable work in keeping the community healthy. Proclaim this 8th day of March, 2023.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
Thank
A
you.
long way since when I was in school, it was usually somebody's Uncle Gus, usually sitting in his car, having a tackle box with two kinds of athletic tape.
Yeah, we've come a long way,
If anybody wonders as to the value of on-site trainers and other medical professionals, ask the young man from the Buffalo Bills who is still with us.
Yeah.
Apparently without ill effect, because somebody was Johnny on the spot who knew what in the world they were doing.
Yeah, that is our, as athletic trainers, that's our worst nightmare, but it's also what we're prepared for, so.
Yep.
And as a
Hopefully that never
grandparent,
has to happen. What's that?
as a grandparent, I love to see the athletic trainer taking care of my grandchildren. They're getting
Good.
beat around.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, instrumental music presentation. Jeff Erdman.
I'd like to welcome Mr. Erdman. Mr. Erdman approached me and we were talking about the wonderful things that he was doing with his voluntary stringed instrument program. And I invited him to perform at tonight's board meeting. He'll be leading a performance by a couple of his students, and then Mr. Erdman will share a little bit more about his program. So welcome, Mr. Erdman, and when your students are ready, if you could have them introduce themselves. Thank you.
I got a couple extra here. Yep.
One extra, Jeff, if you want to hand to
sorry.
somebody else.
There's
Yeah, well, thank you.
not a spare, so.
Thank you. Let's check your guys' tuning quick. Play your babe. Easy. Good. Try yours. Okay. Good. Both introduce yourselves. How would you know? Go ahead. Say your name, your grade, and when it's ready to play.
My name is Noel. I am in 6th grade and I play the violin.
My name is Tess. I'm in 6th grade and I play the cello.
We're going to be playing a piece for you called Ninja, composed by Richard Beyer. One thing you'll notice while we play this is there are 3 different parts that you can hear. I'm letting you hear the 3 main parts you would hear in this piece because through working with them in their 2nd year, they're already working on some music that is like upper 7th grade level, even maybe early 8th grade, just by how much time they have put into showing up to their lessons, how much time they practice outside of school. So just to give you an idea of what my students are sounding like currently in their 2nd year, okay? Huh. 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 Shh. 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 Huh. Thank you for helping me with that, Diane. Thank you. You can both go and get this back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was terrific, thank you.
Marvelous. Thank you for sharing those.
Yeah, sure. It's got a little more information for us.
So I'm here tonight because I sent home a survey recently to 4th and 5th grade families in my elementary music room to see what kind of an interest I may be looking at for the 2023 to 2024 school year. And what began as an activity that we weren't sure how it was going to go is now showing that the interest is climbing and climbing and climbing each year. Looking at my 16 students that I teach currently, at the end of the school day, sometimes for like 20 minutes during their lunch recess, just one day a week if I'm in this building, I'm looking at a change from about 16 students up to 38 for next school year. A total of 22 incoming 4th graders for next year have declared their interest in either beginning violin or cello. So more than 100% growth right there. What I'm looking at right now is I've been sponsored by PEEF the last 2 years. I have written grants. You'll notice in my introduction, the first PEEF contribution of $4,725.29 that helped purchase 6 school-owned instruments. Got our method books, all of our accessories. The piece that we actually just played now was purchased with part of that grant. For this current school year, my amount that was requested, I got a counter offer, and I was very understanding about that. I'm very grateful to PEEF for helping me get this activity going. And what that's helping with right now is it's helping cover rental costs for instruments for families that might have a hard time being affording the cost of that instrument. So it's nice because families that I have that want to participate but are financially worried about the cost, I have a lot of families that are able to benefit from having either school-owned instrument they can borrow or one provided for them. My current makeup, I'm looking at about the 2 that I have right now that just help me play that piece. They're in their second year. They are my only 2 6th graders in the other building. Anyone else that is in their second year is currently hosted here in the elementary. With my 4th grade right now, all in their first year, we have a total of 11 playing. And then next year, as I mentioned, I will be looking at an increase of about 22. Now, that can vary from time to time if a family chooses to move to another district, or if we have another family move in, that could also change my numbers a little bit, but approximately 22 students I'm looking at for interest for the next year. Something I'm working on right now is I am collaborating with Carrie Phipps of Hyde Music She is working with Julie, who is the education accounts coordinator, and they help schools get packages put together and get programs up and running. So right now I'm looking at a program here that is, for a small school, is maybe not seen in a lot of small school districts in Wisconsin, is taking off rather quick. So I'm working with her right now to look at options for being able to increase our school district instrument inventory, as well as if I still don't have enough instruments to supply for everyone, what it would take to get an instrument available for all students. Looking at the backside, positives of making this investment and being able to let this program grow further. One thing I'm working on with this is making a budget request, which I will be submitting to my building principal to look into what I might need to help run this program more effectively next year, given the interest that is occurring. Just some positives I want to note. Orchestra in small school districts, it's very rare. Band and choir are the main offerings almost any school district you go to, but having that third ensemble is what sometimes has a student join a second music class. Sometimes it is the ensemble that guarantees that they want to do a music class all the way through their graduating year. Some students will choose to take more than one instrument throughout their time being a 6 through 12 student. Benefits of being able to up my instrument inventory here would be families unable to afford the rental cost of an instrument can still benefit from this ensemble being offered. I'm looking at wanting to build it approximately a little bit each year so that we can make that investment over time. And I just have 2 points of visions I have in the future as this is allowed to grow a little bit more. This would also allow me to collaborate with nearby school districts such as Wisconsin Rapids or Stevens Point, as I'm looking at specifically with Rapids wanting to put together a River Cities All City String Festival, which would allow me to collaborate with teachers from that district and have our schools combined for an all city string festival. Also, as I am an active judge for the WSMA, which is the Wisconsin School of Music Association, one of my students, we've been working on a solo, and it kind of just hit me in the head when I was judging one of these last weekends that some of the music the students are working on is already Class C. It's already on the list. So I'm already having students that are, for coming to their lessons and also practicing outside of school, they're getting to that level now where I can begin getting them to these competitions along with our choral and band students that currently go each year as long as they want to. Okay, so in closing, I'm currently working to make that budget request for during this month. I'll be submitting this to my building principal, and then this will be going through the central office. Enhancing this program is going to have plenty of positive growths in what we can provide for students that have maybe multiple areas of music interest. And another thing I'm also looking at is wanting to increase this from just being an activity to being a co-curricular offering, similar to how a sport would be ran. I've been talking with Jim about being able to have this be something that even in the early evening hours for some of the newer families that I can have by parental arrangement for the kids to come in the evening on a certain day of the week, and I can do their lessons not just at the end of the day, but as I have my numbers growing, be able to offer that still for the new students coming in. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Erdman. I'm
Thank you.
impressed.
Thank you.
Those students did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jeff. That was very thorough, and we look forward to the future. It's a growing program, and it's got a lot of potential for our students here in Port Edwards. Thank you very much.
And we know how important music is to all students, and what it does when they're involved in music, it usually makes their other classes go better too, because it's a great thing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, moving on to President's Report. All board members are in attendance. And the next item is my proclamation. I think it's a little shorter. Okay, it's National School Breakfast Week. So whereas the School Nutrition Association has designated March 6th through the 10th, 2023 National School Breakfast Week, and whereas the school breakfast program contributes to the health and educational development of our state's children by making nutritious breakfasts available in Wisconsin schools, and whereas studies indicate that students who eat breakfast have improved mathematics grades and reading scores, enhanced classroom attentiveness, reduced absenteeism and tardy rates, fewer nurses visits, reduced childhood hunger, and improved social and emotional well-being. And whereas during school year 21-22, the time of unprecedented supply chain challenges and staffing shortages, more than 44 million breakfasts were served in Wisconsin schools, thanks to the ability of many dedicated individuals involved in this program, including state officials, school nutrition professionals, school administrators, teachers, parents, local civic leaders, and many volunteers. And whereas school breakfast programs can significantly enhance the students' learning environment, allowing children to concentrate on learning. And therefore, I, Jill Underly, State Superintendent of Public Instruction, do hereby proclaim in the state of Wisconsin National School Breakfast Week, March 6th through the 10th, 2023. Thanks to all our dedicated professionals that
Absolutely.
help out with our breakfast.
They do a wonderful job every day, and we do everything we can to thank them and show our gratitude, because it can be at times, I've called it a thankless job. They are there to serve. They wake up early. They're here preparing at 6 a.m. And I'm very thankful for our kitchen staff at both buildings. Thank you.
And next item, next board meetings are April 12th and May 10th. So moving on to administrative reports. First one, district administrator report. Jim.
Over the last 2 months, in our central office and with our school board, we've started having an increasing amount of conversations about the need for a referendum. We're not quite sure if it's an operating referendum, a capital referendum, but after looking at our financials currently as well as going forward, it's pretty clear that there is a need for additional funding. With that in mind, working with Lisa, who worked very closely with the last referendum this past year in Port Edwards 4 years ago, she and I have been working with CISA 10, and we've also been working with Baird Financial. And we have guests here tonight from both of those organizations. CISA 10 will be presenting first, followed by Baird. I'd like to introduce our guests. However, from CISA 10, we have Luke Schultz. Welcome, Luke. Don Keck. And we have Lindsay Schreiner as well, from all the way down from Chippewa Falls, right? Chippewa Falls and Plover.
I live in Plover.
Plover. Drive. Okay, welcome. And we have Debbie Brunette from Baird, and she will be following CISA 10. CISA 10 was here 2 Fridays ago. They did a thorough walk through our district. They did the capital inventory, but a capital assessment of the age and the efficiency of a number of our things in our buildings and on our campus. They're going to present that report tonight, a brief version of that report with some recommendations. And then Debbie from Baird will follow up with some financial, how the finances tie into that. So with that, I'd like to welcome Luke from CISA.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. If I plug this in for a presentation,
Sure.
can we do that?
Yes, we can if you plug it into mine. Sure.
If you're okay with that.
I am okay with that.
So it doesn't beep.
I think it's the only one that's on there. Well, hello, everybody. A lot of information tonight. As Jim said, we walked through the facility. We kind of had a conversation looking at next steps. We assisted you guys with the 2019 operational referendum. We've done several projects in the past with your district. We're very familiar with your district. But still, in a week and a half, we turned over a report just to give you a good idea of where you're at with building needs, because you guys are at the point now where we have our operational referendum that's going to fall off. And then we also have our building needs. And the last referendum in 2019, we included in some scope.
The district, we're very familiar with the district, but still.
That's not it?
No,
We're hearing you.
I don't know why we're
Good
hearing.
idea.
Yeah.
Why are we hearing
That was you tonight.
Oh, yeah, tonight.
Recorded.
Feedback from the recording.
I was like, I'm
Didn't
pretty
get
good,
it
I'm
the
saying the
first
exact
time.
same words from.
You sure my computer's turned off?
Right.
Could be ghosting the whole thing.
But I can hand these out while we're waiting.
Just turn
Thank you.
it, unplug it.
Thank you. Just hang on. I don't know if I'm gonna do any good, but.
And if it happens to not work, we're okay, Lisa? I can make it
I'm
work.
not sure why it's doing that.
Technology. And so looking at the first slide is just really kind of talking about.
We have it.
See?
Yeah.
We have it. No, you're okay.
We have it.
Okay.
Thank you, Don.
I think everybody can see.
I don't work in this building.
There we go.
Is that good?
Good
Yep.
job.
Or do you want them all?
That's good.
I don't drink.
So looking at the first slide is just really kind of talking about some of the.
I'll turn the volume down on that.
I'll make those.
There you go.
There.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then I'll just look at you, you could switch a couple if you wanna keep going, but for those that don't know CISA 10, we have a Chippewa Falls office, we have a Madison office, we go statewide with our services. We do environmental health safety, which we do with your district, and that's making sure, following compliance and indoor air quality and safety procedures, but just making sure that we're following state statutes and requirements when it comes to the environmental side. If you don't mind, if you wanna keep going down, right there. So we get into our environmental consulting, we work with roughly 133 school districts throughout the state. CISA 10, we also get into facility audits, which I will briefly go through today with you. We do construction management and referendum planning. Go to the next one. Little bit of history, last 5 years, we've done over $100 million worth of projects. We have a 93% success rate with our referendums. Our marketing team has won, I believe, 5 awards in the last 3 years of just working with referendums in our marketing. Successfully passed your referendum in 2019, your operational referendum. And then we also have done working with operational versus capital and what makes sense and next steps there. So as we get into this, as Jim said, we sat down with Jim and Lisa and Frank, and then we walked through your buildings. Again, this is in a week and a half. So this is what we generated out of that. Granted, we are familiar with your buildings. Don't get shocked by some of the pricing or with where we're at, because I just want to let you know we're encompassing everything with your buildings right now. So we want to start here and then work our way down of what makes sense for the Port Edward School District and the community to move forward with.
So Luke, cut me off. I don't think I'm gonna misstep by saying you are gonna see a lot of big prices on here, but this isn't like one shopping list at one trip to the grocery store. This would be spread out maybe over 8 to 10 years possibly.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So to give you an idea, looking right here, we're at the elementary school. You've got the chiller and the cooling tower. It's close to its expected useful life, starting to have maintenance issues with that, where we would put that on the list in the next 1 to 3 years, you would need to start to look at this. Keep in mind, these are needs that when we walk through your facility, these are needs right now. So when you look at a 2024 referendum in April, you're more than likely not doing most of these projects until 2025 summer, to give you an idea. So projects that might be 1 to 2 years now, those are getting passed, but think of those projects that are 3 to 5 years, depending on when you look at a referendum. Again, I'm just summarizing, but there's more detail in here, and depending the direction where we go, when we get to the end of this, this is a document that we can help use with the community to help communicate the projects and the measures that the district is looking at moving forward. So again, this might start with 25 pages, But depending on when we get to the referendum, it might be 2 pages. It just depends on what direction we go. So right now, when I go through this, this is just a list of things that we address that you need to look at in the next 1 to 3 years at this building here. The cooling tower, security cameras, there's some gaps where we'd like to add a few cameras, update the notification system, bathroom, which when we say bathroom addition, we will look at this, but if you happen to add a new gym here, we would recommend adding a bathroom for extra facilities. Cafeteria flooring, we would look at, and then upgrade just the access points, the Wi-Fi into Cat6 cabling within this building. So roughly $565,000 that you would look at here in this building in the next 1 to 3 years. If you look at the next 4 to 6 years, we would look at equipment, we would look at replacing a boiler, we would look at your direct digital controls, which to give you an idea, this building right here is on pneumatics, which is controlled by air. Very inefficient, not comfort wise, where your digital controls will give you a lot more capabilities, which you have at your high school, middle school. Most of your building is on digital controls, but not all of it. Electrical system upgrade here, and if you guys have been in your mechanical room, you have a mezzanine up there, which is very odd. Your main electrical is up there, your chiller and your cooling is up there. Where just looking at your electrical, it needs to be updated, but we'd also look at that, getting that down to ground level.
Is the electrical original
Yes,
to 68, 69?
correct.
Oh my. Okay.
Another bathroom remodel, and again, this is looking at your bathrooms here, looking at updating your partitions, looking at updating your flooring and your fixtures, but essentially a facelift and then getting those. As you do that, you gotta get them up to ADA compliance. And so some of the bathrooms here would need a complete rehaul as they are not ADA compliant. Kindergarten HVAC wing, look at doing a couple updates there. We'd update the telephone system here and then look at remodeling the office, principal's office, just some sight and vision and some different things that we'd like to look at there. But if you can see in the next 4 to 6 years, we'd be looking at roughly $2 million with this building. Projects in the next 7 to 10 years would be replacing the generator here, upgrade exterior doors, cafeteria tables, and then gym addition, would be looking to add a gym on this north side if that's a direction that you guys want to go. Most of these are all needs. The gym addition would be one that was included, that talking with administration, but we're lacking gym space here, and that would be something we could look at doing. But roughly at this building, the elementary, we'd be looking at $4 million worth of projects. So when you look at total here, 6.6. Again, don't get shocked by the numbers, but these are 6.6 that we see. Granted, the new gym is in those numbers as well. So there's things in there that are not all needs that are in the next 1 to 2 years. Now we're moving on over to the middle school and the high school, and these are projects in the next 1 to 3 years. There's some concrete replacement front of the building where you're starting to get some cracks and trips and hazards. We look at those. Masonry repairs, that's looking at your tuck pointing or repointing, depending on how you want to call it, but there's some bricks falling off, there's efflorescence, the white stuff that's coming out of the buildings, but I know the district has done some portions of this in the past few years with their budget where they're doing $25,000 chunks here and there, but there's still a lot of work left to do with the masonry. A secure entrance, something to look at the high school. It's going to be difficult and more cost effective. So we also look at with the security camera system, there's some gaps there, but maybe we could just update the more camera out in front to make that secure. But when I say secure office, that means if somebody comes into your building, they need to go through your office and get buzzed into the building before they're free to go anywhere else. That's typically what you're seeing in school districts now.
Similar to what Wisconsin Rapids has done in many of their buildings in the past year.
Correct.
What they did at Lincoln High School, what they've done at Howard Mead and the other schools.
But again, that goes with every district's a little bit different and what's best for your district. Both of your district offices, they're locked, they're secure. You got to get buzzed in from the office. They have visibility, but I think there's some things for a lower cost that we can do to help tighten up that security with some cameras rather than doing full secure office. We have unit ventilators at the high school. The district has been doing an awesome job with the budget that they've had to update current unit ventilators, but there's still unit ventilators there that need help and need to be updated. Roof exhaust, yes, sir?
Are those univents, the figure that you have here, does that reflect univents that provide AC along with heat?
Correct.
So as they would come out in a given classroom, that classroom would then have AC capability.
Correct. Yep. And as we get further down the road, and depending on where these conversations go as we progress, but do we keep doing unit ventilators and putting units on the top, or do we look at full AC for the whole building and look at different ways of doing that and more efficiently? So we'll get into that. Roof exhaust fans. And we'd like to, right now, that $10,000, that would just be to examine your sewer lines. But with the age of that building, I think looking at next steps, depending on where we go, I think both of these buildings could maybe use a little bit of it, but let's get a plumber in here and get a camera in there and let's actually get a report to see what condition those sewer pipes really are. Because that's a big one, depending on the condition of those, that's a big cost. Still looking at next 1 to 3 years, water lines. That's going to your unit ventilators and domestic that we'd like to upgrade. I know you guys have done a few of these in the past few years, but we look at updating the rest. Electrical system upgrade at the high school, same here at the elementary school. Outdated, original, where we'd like to upgrade that system. And then depending on if you do look at adding cooling and things like that, we're probably gonna have to address that anyway.
Does either of the buildings have three-phase electric?
Yeah, they all do. They both
They
do.
both do?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that contributes to the cost of the upgrade.
Yeah.
Upgrading
And
three-
in your-
upgrading
the high
three-phase costs a
school-
lot more than
Yeah,
standard.
but almost every, I don't know of a school in the state that's not three-phase.
Okay.
But, the age of the building at the high school is gonna make it difficult to run thick walls, and the way it was constructed, it's gonna be more expensive to run new electrical cable and conduit.
Okay. All right.
Replace exterior doors in the gym. Same thing with upgrade access points, Wi-Fi, Cat 6, the high school. Bathroom addition there, 330, some bathrooms that need to be updated with partitions. And then it would also, school districts are looking at, but family restroom, transgender bathroom, we'd be looking at doing something like that at the high school, middle school. And then tech ed area, we'd be looking at doing a epoxy floor.
Taking up the existing asbestos tiles
Correct.
and just grinding the floor with an epoxy cover.
Yep. Looking at the next 4 to 6 years, other floor cracks that we'd like to address and update. Looking at the remaining pneumatics, get that up to DDC at that building. Upgrade the telephone system, and then look at updating your track. That's out by the football field. Those are your projects in the next 4 to 6. Here's projects in the next 7 to 10. New chiller. And when we say new chiller, this would encompass, to your point, sir, when we're looking at unit ventilators and we're adding AC units to each one, this would be something where we look at the chiller and then we get rid of all the rooftop units
Okay.
with the building. You could see the big Kiwani boiler that's there.
Wow.
The last time you guys updated your boilers, that baby's still been sitting there with asbestos in it. And we look at getting rid of that boiler. And there's also a gas tank down there. And there's also a bunch of asbestos boiler piping that has currently been abandoned. But that's where, we say 7 to 10 years because you can leave it sit there for another 7, 10 years if you'd like, or you can get it out. Yes, sir?
In 1996, the Nakusa district passed a referendum to build a new middle school. As part of the preparation for that, I worked in that building for most of my career. As part of the preparation for that referendum, we did building tours. And I made a point of ending my tour in the area under the stairs where the big 6 to 7 foot open V-belt circulating fan was. About the size of that boiler. And it had a big brass plate on it that said Milwaukee Iron Works 1912. And I pointed out to the citizens as they finished up their tour that the building was constructed the year the Titanic sank, and I thought maybe they probably had their money's worth.
Yeah, it's good.
The referendum passed.
Yep, and that's a good point, because a lot of times then when you get to those walkthroughs, they don't get to see the boiler room and, the mechanical room. They go into the nice gym and the new bathrooms that are right next to the gym, and that's what they see. But very good point. We would look at a new freezer at the middle school, high school. Can't think of what the little area is, but it's right next to the cafeteria, but we'd look at installing a new freezer there as they need more space. And then looking at the football field, there's the white shed out there. We would look at demolishing that and putting a new storage facility out there was another item that we discussed. Weight room, we talked about this I remember even Kyle a few years ago, to give you an idea of just pricing, that weight room was below $1 million, I think. 4 years ago when I gave that price to Kyle, and now you can see what, doing the exact same footprint, I just updated the cost, is now $2 million.
Wow.
But that would be looking to add a weight room outside of your high school, kind of like a little community center where it's just got a little lobby with restrooms and some cubbies. But then that weight room could be used by the community and then the school district. And that, we're kind of looking just a footprint, very high level at this point, but kind of by the greenhouse. It would be the south side of the high school middle school. Locker upgrade, gym floor refinish, hasn't been refinished. And then look at a generator replacement. But those are your projects at the high school, middle school for 7 to 10 years at $5.5 million. So if you look at the high school, $10 million. Well, the next one, Lisa. So when we discuss next steps, and Debbie's a big part of the next steps and kind of the financial piece, is we gotta find out what's best for Portage, or Port Edwards, working with Portage too, sorry about that. And so every community to that point is a little different. And to give you an idea, I was last week at one district and we're doing a facility out at referendum planning, and you bring up a football field, we need turf. You gotta put it in there. Let's start talking about it. And then you go the next day to a different district, don't even bring turf up. So that's where we start here and we like to work back. So I don't want you to get shocked by the pricing, but at the same time, that gives you a good idea of there's some needs here that you need to look at and address. The good thing is when you look at your timeline to an April 2024 referendum, that's what this is for. And I'll work backwards with you just to give you an idea that we have time, but at the same point, we got a few months here where we gotta start thinking about these and what direction you wanna go. And I think the financial piece will help with that, and then we just start narrowing down of what's best for the district. But if you look at April, that's when your referendum passes. March is a very heavy marketing push, where we're getting backpack flyers and the collateral is going home with students, and you're hitting that messaging in the mailboxes. You kind of wanna, the first 2 months right before April, that's when you really wanna get most of the messaging. You don't wanna do it too early, because then it gets forgotten. February, very similar, marketing outreach, more newsletters. January was where we get into the community walkthroughs. To your point, Leo, that's where we're walking through. We're showing them the 1955 boiler, we're showing them the gas tank, and we're pointing those areas out and giving the community an opportunity to see those spaces. December is when you're looking to pass your resolution. With that, October, to give you an idea, October is where we really want to have, this is our scope, this is the direction we're going in that early October phase. So July, September, that's where when we talk on here, depending on what direction you go, if it's an owner's rep, an operational referendum, there's a lot less detail that you're gonna do for an operational referendum than you are for a capital. So when we did our 2019, we weren't doing the walkthroughs, we weren't going that route, where this gets a lot busier if you're looking at a capital referendum, where we're doing the community meetings, we're doing the walkthroughs, you're forming a facility advisory committee, and that starts happening towards the early summer months.
April 24 is going to be a presidential primary too.
Correct, so you'll get more people
There's
coming.
going to be a lot of people out.
Yep. So February to May, to give you a good idea, that's kind of where we need to figure out what direction we're going. So we got a little bit of time here, but as you guys are aware, everybody's busy and that time flies by. So when we look to get to that May kind of time frame, are we looking operational? Are we looking capital? And what does that include? I know this is a lot of information and I want to give it high level because I know Baird's going to come in and talk too about just the financial piece of it. But I think if we got anything out of tonight, there's a lot of needs that you need to address with your two buildings. But at the same time, your staff has been doing an awesome job keeping up with what they have and the age of them. Your staff needs to be credited for keeping the stuff moving as it is. But at the same time, pneumatics, it's outdated. It's been outdated for years and years, decades. And sometimes it's, you know, you can only limp along so long with certain equipment before eventually it's going to fail, like your chiller, and then you got to replace it. And that puts these two in a tough spot of how are we going to replace that and pay for it.
What in the districts that you've worked with has been the history of operational versus capital versus both?
Good question. I will tell you, an operational referendum is going to pass before a capital referendum, just because the most cases that's keeping your doors open and staff and keeping your curriculum and delivering the services that you can deliver. Reoccurring referendums are a little bit more difficult to pass than whether it's a term, whether 3 or 5 year operational referendum. But capital referendums, there's good support all around.
Wow.
Trying to think, 80%.
Yeah, it's about 81% the last year.
Yeah. So school districts referendums, they've been in support. I would say too, if you're looking at doing an operational and a capital at the same time too, I think your odds go down a little bit there of just trying to pass both.
That's why I asked the question.
Yep. So, again, this is very high level. We really dive into the weeds. We really get your staff. We get everybody involved, your community, but it really depends on kind of what direction we go. Where it's very detailed, very thorough. If it's a capital referendum, and then if you're doing a smaller capital referendum, it's a little bit less, but it really depends on the direction you're going. We're here to help you, whatever that direction is. And this is a timetable. You'll be seeing a lot of us. This is just the very beginning of it and the very high level. But I'm here to entertain any questions that you guys may have at this time. Jim, Lisa too, is there anything that we talked about that I'm missing?
I don't think so. Very thorough. It's just gonna get much more busy from this point on. I went through this route in my previous district and, community meetings, community tours, and getting that feedback from the district or from the community is gonna be our next steps for sure. And, a busy year in front of us, but we're looking forward to it.
Very busy. And I wanted to leave this with you guys so you can take this home, read it. There's a lot of information in there, but to give you an idea as we move forward, this is the exact document we kind of want to use and then just keep molding it to what's best for you guys.
Luke, I guess one question just came to mind, and one of the big points here has been capital versus operational. When do we need to make that decision?
It's a good question. Because we haven't, every district we've had it, be October, November before they're starting to make that decision.
Okay.
I think the sooner you make that decision though, the better, because then you're getting that messaging out to your community. And the sooner you can start messaging to your community, the more successful your referendum's gonna be. We typically like to say if you're at least 9 months in advance, know the direction that you're going and could start communicating that with your community members, it really helps your odds. It just gives you more time to be thorough and detailed and you're not trying to rush anything. So I would think if we could have a goal of what direction you're going early summer, I think that's a good spot.
Does that conversation have to be in an open meeting or can it be in a closed meeting to determine whether it's operational or capital?
You always want to be as transparent as possible.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think you might be able to do some things in closed session. I'd just be very careful as soon as you start going in closed session, then that's where you guys are gonna get a lot of phone calls. And it's good to be transparent because if people don't know what's going on or they don't understand, it's a no-go.
I understand having open conversations when it needs to be, but the preliminary stuff, I think is gonna be beyond, and I'm worried about bad information getting circulated if we can't speak freely about certain things.
100%, and that's where sometimes they do special meetings, or you have meetings on the side, or you can do your closed session, but for example, like this, I wouldn't be sending this out or wanting this to get out to your community at this
No.
time, because then they look at things and they're like, you're doing a $16 million referendum? And then,
Yeah.
you know, and you start diving into it, no, we're just starting to talk, that's all the needs that we need to address, and so,
Luke, this is my first time working with CSA 10 on this type of work. Through CSA 10's process, who makes the decisions about what gets cut if we do decide to propose a capital referendum? You know, the new gym, I talk about needs and wants, and obviously we can all see there's a lot of needs on there. We also could identify several things that we'd love to have, but maybe on the chopping block. Who does that work? Who makes those decisions? And what does that look like?
good question. So we go through as a third party, we compile all your information, and we can tell you, for example, your pneumatics, this is very inefficient.
Yep.
We put this on our priority list at the top 10 type of thing. But it all boils down to administration, board, and community of what direction you wanna go and what's best for your district. We tee it up, you guys make the final decision.
That document can be added to, subtracted from, and modified in all kinds of ways.
Yep.
Yes.
Prior to it becoming the Bible.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Exactly.
Right.
This would be the ultimate wish list,
Yeah.
basically.
Yes, you got it.
We, in my prior district, we boiled it down to kind of a menu. We had, item A was 54 million or 51 million, then 34 million, I think 17 million and 7 million. And it went from having, it's like buying a new vehicle, right?
Right.
Having all the bells and whistles and everything at 51 million down to what do we really need to keep our doors open and make sure we have heat and light and sewer and everything like that. Is it a process similar like that?
Yeah, and you break it down because you're gonna have your major priority, these are needs. Your boiler goes down, you need a boiler, you need to
Right.
heat your facility. If your roofs are in rough shape, you need to replace your roofs, that's your main component of your building, let's keep water out of the building. So there's gonna be things, and 98% of the stuff that we're talking about in here are maintenance needs.
Right.
It's not new construction where we could pick the Cadillac and then go down, these are your maintenance needs, and eventually, these are gonna need to be updated. It's just, do they need to be updated in the next 3 years, or is it the next 5 years, or can it go another 10?
There was no turf field, there was no indoor dome.
Right.
This is boilers and controls.
Yep.
What's the range on years like you've seen for referendums? Like 6 years? How long?
Reoccurring?
Yeah.
Is there a statutory requirement for the number of years a continual or recurring,
Right, yeah.
non-recurring capital versus operational referendum
Big
can be?
You could do a reoccurring, and so let's say you lock it in for 300,000 reoccurring, you get that 300,000 forever. And so we've done a few referendums that are reoccurring, and it depends on your community, but now it's an open checkbook. And then as things go up or things increase, then you're gonna come back 5 years, and then you're gonna want more.
They're generally speaking, not a good idea.
Typically, you see 5-year if it's an operational referendum, Debbie.
So how about I actually have a couple slides talking about that, if that's
Perfect.
okay? And I
Yep.
can talk about it then. if
Any
that's
other
okay.
questions for Luke?
Yeah.
Yes, because I am not a financial advisor. That's where we hand that over to Baird.
We stayed away.
But I'll stay and we'll listen to the.
Dana has a question.
Yep.
No, I mean,
Oh.
doesn't it make the most sense that we would establish what the impact is on tax rolls?
On the levy.
And the levy, and then adjust and create our parameters and then pick what we can do within the parameters.
You got it, sir. That's all I was gonna end with is when this next presentation is where you're gonna find out, okay, this is what we need to do to get our operational. But when you start looking at, okay, if we do $5 million, how is this going to affect our houses? Then you guys are gonna know what direction you need to go. Because when you get to a certain dollar amount, be like, nope, this isn't gonna pass. Our homeowners aren't gonna do this. Then that helps us, okay? So if we're gonna do a $5 million referendum, then we update this document and then we work for $5 million.
Correct. We have to, and then, determine the appetite of the community.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
So that's where your surveys, to your point, Dana, and all that comes in of
Okay.
what makes sense, but very good question.
Okay. Thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome Debbie.
Excellent questions. So I was just thinking as I was sitting there, as I go and present to boards, and I'm sure you experience this as well, oftentimes we're first on the agenda. Oftentimes that means we're after the students, so like the band playing and such. So I always feel like I come up and I'm like, yay kids, now let's talk about finance. So it was a really good presentation on the facilities too. So not following kids directly tonight, but excited to kind of bridge that gap. So my name is Debbie Brunette and I'm excited to be here again. Many of you were here with the last operational referendum. And so my job tonight is to bridge that gap, provide some more information about your operational referendum, as that is retiring, and then talk a little bit about all these projects if you did choose to do a facility referendum, a debt referendum as part of the solution. We added some slides into that as well because we thought there might be some questions following up this presentation too.
Email it to me really quickly.
It's not.
The adapter
Because this
isn't working.
isn't fitting.
It's not fitting.
Imagine that.
So yeah, if you could share it,
Fitting.
share it. Unless,
See how this is. We only have one USB here.
Oh, and you need them both?
In both of them.
Part of this is spread into another part of the
Okay.
course, but when I adjourn the work,
Open it out.
1 minute, technical difficulties.
Sorry.
Please stand by.
been there, done that.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Problems solved.
HVAC facilities, did you even make human control?
Take it.
You're probably not gonna find too, I mean, you could probably still search out some replacement parts and pieces. I mean, most of it's gonna be, what's in, contractor's inventory and what you can make work. I mean, Schematics is quite remarkable as to how specific it can be what it was,
There it is.
but the right, seed controls is definitely.
Okay, we thought we were being efficient if I brought mine on my laptop so that we could just plug it, but
Getting there,
Building automation system. and
I'll
that's-
just,
At your fingertips, so that's where the seed controls is such more of an advantage. But Schematics is very interesting.
okay, I'll just,
It's loading.
I'll do the lead in.
Perfect.
So, thank you for having me back tonight. I'm excited to be back again. Back in 2019, I believe we were talking about operational referendum for the first time. It's hard to believe that that is coming to an end in our non-recurring. And you, like many districts who are in that similar situation this time of year, are talking about what's next. What do we do and how does it incorporate with our bigger plans such as facilities that have arisen over the time or existed then and just got set aside because of other priorities. So tonight, my goal is to provide information, build on what you just heard from CISA 10, and leave you with information so that you can keep talking. We'll be back, just like CISA will be back. I'll be back to continue to add to the information, really just provide a good baseline for you tonight.
Is it Sophia?
We just did it for.
We did Luke's.
Yeah, that's fine. Oh, nothing is ever easy, is it?
Good try.
But it has something to do with, did this go to sleep or what's going on? Looks like it's on,
No, cause you can see the,
Yeah.
Right.
it's projecting up on top.
It's searching.
It looks like it's trying to find a signal.
It's searching.
Oh, yeah, no.
I
Yeah.
don't know what it's searching for.
And it's been on and off.
I'll get a cup of coffee while we.
Sure. Intermission. Like to help yourself, there's ice water and coffee.
Popcorn in the lobby.
Building the suspense.
Turn it off all the way. I turned it back on now.
There's advantages to the overhead projectors.
That's right.
Right?
Those are the real.
Chalk and a chalkboard.
Goodness, yes.
Multitude must recommend they put it on 10 years. The increase in number of.
Yep.
Right, but it's,
The legislature would start to get an idea that
now I don't have anything on the
this
screen.
is sort of ridiculous.
Been
and
pressing
maybe
on.
we should just give the school districts some funding so they don't have to review all this.
Oh.
What
It's just
part
a
of
matter
this
of getting
message-
them.
I don't
Really?
understand.
Really?
I really I don't understand why stupidity is so rampant.
Because stupidity and politics have nothing to do with
Do you
each
have a
other.
magic touch?
They're mutually exclusive.
Oh,
I hear what you're saying.
okay. Okay, we'll take advantage of your reputation. That's in. There's a button on the end of it too. Let's say, worst case scenario, we can email it to you, and I can try to mine too, but we have the same.
We should just put a copy, we should make copies.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Just take it out. Oh, I don't.
I don't know why, but it's not lighting up, so.
This is not.
Let's try it again.
Yeah, I can try it on mine.
It's not beeping.
Oh,
Gotta go, got some.
so we've got the screen, so we gotta plug it.
Talking to someone.
So it's report live.
That's the projector.
Here.
The
We
light's
just
on.
need, yeah, I think, I don't know.
Gotta get in the, have to get in the right mode. Oh,
No.
oh,
No.
I didn't press anything.
No.
Signal, it's searching.
Oh.
Want Donna and I to do our reports? Yeah.
The little engine lid or
Well,
what?
just be thrown in the dark together.
No signal.
Take a look at the two cans.
I mean, it just worked for the one.
It's
I
at
think we just did.
HDMI. It's HDMI, isn't it?
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're on HDMI.
Next computer, which one?
Yeah, I could try. Just see if it,
Well, even, you don't even have to get the thing, just try to plug it in and see
yeah, I'm
if
gonna
yours
try
just,
that. Yeah.
just comes up.
This is what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jen, did they send a special request for you to come by just for the sake of having the. You were silly enough to show up and look what happened.
Yeah, right?
You worked with Sonata for one summer and
Yeah.
suddenly.
You're the tech person, right?
Lesson and this happened.
We have another.
Okay, I'm sorry to keep you.
I don't think turning them on or off is gonna
I
help.
thought it was gonna bring up a lot. I know.
You got some popcorn?
The only other,
Usually used for like our displays.
Looking
usually
different.
pop right up.
I never thought
Yeah.
of
Me earlier. The last thing.
I'm glad technology makes things so much easier.
Kara, if I email this to you, can you go in your office and copy it, or print it for each of the board members, copy it?
I can sure try. It might be 45 minutes for the copier to heat up, so add that to the referendum.
Of course, I mean, that makes sense.
When all else fails, go find Xerox. Or Epson, or whoever.
Thanks for your patience.
And I didn't bring any flash drive either to shift it onto, so.
Gosh.
You can use mine.
We're locked down, we aren't allowed to share. Thank you though. I thought of that.
No problem.
Got nothing.
We could put it on an
Let's see.
no, it wouldn't matter.
So,
Can't the HDMI.
I've tried.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it's different side on top.
Is it possible to connect it to the TV? And just share it from the TV, Jim? Behind it?
Oh, we could certainly do that.
And just
That's a
plug,
great idea.
Yeah, that is a good idea.
Let's
just
do
use the
that.
TV?
There you go.
I didn't notice that large TV.
We're gonna hook up to the TV.
Good thinking.
Well, let's see which goes faster, which really works.
Let's see.
Is that working?
Actually,
I gotta figure.
no, I think we can try to plug your laptop into the TV. Or I was looking at that one.
That one's
Either one.
This just has it, this kind of
Is that easier?
HDMI.
Okay, let's do that one.
Does that
Yeah,
work for you?
bring your laptop over.
Oh, it's just HDMI then. Are we putting this?
I think
behind
maybe right over here, so
So
the
the
board
board can
and
see
the
it.
audience can see it.
it? The board.
One of these HDMI.
Just gotta plug in. You have to be able to reach an outlet for the TV though.
There's an outlet.
We need an extension cord.
Extension cord.
That's another thing. Do we want this meeting to be live anymore or?
Unplug the
Yeah, we don't want
Somebody make sure to tell the community access TV people.
Right, can't we take this one?
There's an intermission.
Yeah, do you still need your
No, you
laptop
can-
plugged in?
Yeah,
Time
just
to go have a
There you
snack.
go.
Hit the bathroom.
We have one, John.
Board
Okay.
president.
You're on plug, John.
she asked. She was nice.
Why is I hearing yakety sax from Benny Hill?
We can have Jen be our clicker. You need someone to click, right?
Either, yes, and preferably yes, if that's possible,
That
please.
is just fine, but where's the?
Or we can put this over here. Oh, where are we looking? You're looking for the input here?
Day in the life of the.
No, you want to see the light.
There we go. Oh, no, this side.
There it is.
Yay.
Oh, goodness.
Look at this.
Thank you, Jen.
Good call. Good job.
Okay, can everyone see okay?
We can move it forward a little bit.
We tell Kara.
No, it's fine.
Kara doesn't
Move it
have
back,
to-
yeah,
It's fine.
There we go.
Don't
Thank
move
you.
it for fear it'll disappear.
Ah,
Don't touch anything, it's fine.
We've got a daisy chain.
yeah, thank you for your patience.
That's
We
very good.
don't tend to do hard copies this early in the process because the numbers change as
Sure.
we evolve and as we start locking
Sure.
in and getting closer, we start to finalize and then provide that. So thank you for your flexibility. as
Thank
we-
you, Debbie, and thank you for your
got this.
patience. I just wanna say to our
Yeah.
audience too, feel free to go over there where you can see the monitor if you'd like, get up and move.
You can see better.
Yeah,
Okay.
Assume the position. We
So
know.
as,
Students,
oops,
you just became a student rep.
if you
I can do that, certainly.
back, please,
Yeah.
yeah.
absolutely.
So I started talking about this earlier. My goal in preparing this for you tonight was knowing you wouldn't have all the answers, but wanting to give you a good start for future conversations. And so tonight, my job is going to be talking about budget and tax levy, because that's my role for you and your district. But know at the core of everything we talk about, it's educational opportunities for your kiddos, whether it's your facilities, whether it's your operations, and not just your little ones, but your young adults as they move into being college and career ready. So this conversation first started with us knowing that your operational referendum was retiring. So back in April of 2019, you looked ahead at your state finance or at your school finances and you said the state formula isn't enough. We need to ask our community to levy additional dollars in order to operate. They approved it. If you click the next arrow, please. And so you were authorized to levy $600,000 additional for operations for the 19-20 school year, and that extends through next year. because you chose a non-recurring referendum, we'll talk a little bit more about that, that levy authority goes away. And if you need it in whole or in part or in more, you ask the community for the authority to levy again, based on the new amount. And this could be a strategy on its own. It could be combined with the facility needs that we just heard about. And we'll talk more about that later as well. So this is where the conversation started. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each question type, and then we'll pull it all together at the end. Next slide, please. So to review, and I know that this is familiar to many, but I like to start at the beginning. There are two different kinds of referendums that school districts can go for at each regular election cycle. You can go for capital or debt, and that would be related to facility needs, improving your building, renovations, buying land. So you're borrowing money in order to enhance your facilities in some way. And then the other kind is for operations, and that's saying that the state formula doesn't provide enough money for us to operate. We're asking our community to grant us more. And then the two umbrella,
I'm sorry, can you back that slide up, Lisa? I'm just curious, the vote totals from 2019, 541 to what?
241.
541 to 241, thank you.
540 to
Thank you.
241.
It was overwhelming victory,
Yes.
okay,
yes.
that's fine.
Mhm.
I'm just curious for comparison purposes down the road.
And so just to, for those who weren't here last time, we helped run the numbers and CISA 10 helped with the communications related to it. So it was great communication, there was a need, and the community said, yes, we agree. But yeah. So then on the operations side, there are two different kinds you can go for, recurring and non-recurring, and I'll talk more about those in the upcoming slides. Go ahead, one more. I did that verbally. So oftentimes our facilities, like I mentioned, and then operations, it's going to operate our buildings. It's utilities, it's salaries, it's what our students need, it's curriculum, it's technology, what our students need in order to be successful. So let's start with the operational referendum. So operational referendums are tied to the state formula, and during the intermission we were just talking about this. This stems back to 1993, and I apologize if you're at my back. And it was a state formula that was put into place, and the goal at that time was to control the tax levy. What happened at the same time was it controlled the dollars that districts had to operate. And what they said is no longer, school board, can you arbitrarily decide how much you want to levy for operations. We're going to give you a formula for that part. And if the formula isn't enough, that's okay. You need to go and ask your community for the authority for more. And so oftentimes I get asked, next slide please, what happened? And the answer is yes. When revenue limits were put into play, this is way back to, well, this goes back to the 80s, but the yellow dotted line represents where our revenue limits came into play. Back then, your mill rate here was nearly $24 per thousand.
I asked, we had this pre-meeting yesterday, and I had asked Debbie to include this slide just so we could all get a historical perspective on where mill rate has gone, over the last 30 years or so. So you can see it's dropped significantly.
Since revenue limits came into play. And I dubbed the most recent peak, we'll say, at $13 per thousand. And this year, $8.69, and that even included the operational referendum dollars that we're talking about tonight. So did revenue limits work in terms of controlling the levy? Yes. But you, like many districts around the state, are saying it's not providing enough revenue.
So in essence, we're the picket fence the legislature's hiding behind. We're not putting enough funding in.
There's not enough funding in the formula.
Yeah,
Yes.
figures.
Yes, and I was pulling some referendum statistics, and so just operations, over half of the districts in the state, since 1992, if you pass a recurring, that money stays with you forever. So counting those districts who have at one point passed a recurring or have passed more than one, And then those districts like you who had operational non-recurring authority this year, 249 districts. So over half the districts over time either have had or are or currently have authority in place. So you're not unique, and I have a few more slides that speak to that. So then we often get asked, okay, so the state's controlling our revenue limit, why is that so important? The answer to that is because it really does control the majority of your operational revenue. This represents, the gray is your revenue limit authority, which is over 70%. There's a per pupil categorical aid that got added in the biennial budget about 10 years ago. And so that has become a sizable sliver as well. So nearly 80% of the revenue that you have for operations is coming from this formula or per pupil categorical aid related to. The blue, that all other operating revenue, that would be your other state categorical aid such as transportation aid, your library aid, could be federal grants, open enrollment would also fall in there, and even little things like gate receipts for athletic events. That blue bar these last few years has been bigger than normal, taking up a larger percent because of the ESSER funds. And you still have some of those budgeted this year. And so when those go away, pending no replacement, which we don't expect, that blue bar would shrink and come back to more like the 80 to 90% like it was historically. So the answer is it's a really important formula for us, and so when that doesn't provide enough revenue, it truly does impact the programming and what you can offer your students. So back in 2019, just to explain this, there were many ways that I could show this, and I chose this one. If you don't care for it, I can provide many other slides. But when we talk about operational referendums and we talk about non-recurring specifically, we often get asked, well, will we have to come back and ask for more? And the common answer is, well, if the state doesn't change the way that they fund schools or contribute a large dollar amount, more than they have been, it's likely that when one retires, you'll need to come back. And so back in 19, you can see we were just coming off of increases from the state, which is represented by these bars of $100 or $200 per pupil. If you click the forward arrow, in the last 4 years of the referendum, your operational, knowing we have one more, 2 of the years have been 0. So this is very telling in that if we move fast forward today and say, has a lot of money been added to the formula? Has the formula changed? The answer is no. So it isn't surprising that you, like many other districts, are coming back and saying it's very likely that this is going to be part of our solution. And I say part because there might be facilities as part of it as well.
And I believe the common, I'll use the term excuse, which has been thrown around the state a lot, was, well, schools got all that ESSER money. They don't need any more state money. They've got the ESSER money to live on. And that expires September 30th of 2024. So.
Yeah. And many districts have already spent it.
Right.
Yeah.
Or encumbered it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, and it also has to be spent on certain items.
Right.
Yes.
So it's not like it's just, hey,
It's not
whatever you want.
correct.
Well said. Thank you. So then I often get asked, are we the only ones? So interestingly enough, you are unique in that when I look at your referendum history out on the DPI website, you have one question out there, and that is the operational referendum you passed. You're unique in that you haven't gone to referendum for capital purposes. And I look around your facilities and there are definitely some infrastructure needs that we just heard about. You've really, considering you haven't had an operational referendum, I commend you for the work you've done. It's beautiful. It's the behind the scenes stuff that tends to let go now and need to come forward. But if you ask me, have other districts needed to go to referendum? The answer is yes. In this referendum type, RR would be a recurring referendum. So you can see Almond Bancroft, for example, passed a recurring referendum back in 2018. NR would be on non-recurring districts who for a period of time will have revenue just like you. And then issue debt would be those who borrowed money in order to do specific projects, such as Nakusa with the track and the football and soccer field. So the answer is you're not alone, and this is just a small snippet of your region. Statewide, I pulled the referendum funding, whether it's recurring over time, non-recurring, or debt just this year, 90%.
Is there a predominance based on school district size as far as referendum?
No.
Okay, so everybody's getting screwed.
So there's I thought you meant like in terms of passage rate and
No,
such.
I'm just,
No,
I'm
what I'm-
talking about if, the smaller schools need to have more referendums than per capita than the larger schools, districts.
So one of my colleagues is in Washington Island. He was there last night for an operational referendum. Off the thumb, I think they have less than 30 students.
It's tiny.
And then districts as large as Madison are passing operational referendums as well. Yeah, great question. So coming to your statistics, this is a little small on this screen, but I like this visual. We'll share this so it can be handed out to you. But this is since 2000, the number of referendums that issue debt, non-recurring and recurring, and it also goes back and looks at the election dates. So spring 24 is the election date that we've talked about, at least for the operations, or potential date coming forward. And so I thought it helpful on here not just to have the different types or overall rates, but it also shows spring referendums and the number of questions you've seen, which are sizable. Historically speaking, presidential referendums have the most people voting, gubernatorial as well, and other spring elections. And that's the goal, is that you have your voters coming out making their decision that's best for your district. So last thing on our operational referendums, let's focus on the right. So there are two different kinds, and recurring, you are right, recurring isn't as prevalent. I don't tend to use the open checkbook term. I think it's a longer term solution. There's a district down in southern Wisconsin that they had come back and done non-recurring time after time after time, and they said, you know what, the state's not fixing this. Let's make this permanent so we can have a long-term plan. We know we may have to come back in the future and ask for more, but let's create some stability for us. So that might be an example when recurring would work for you. Other districts, non-recurring is a better solution because they like looking at it in smaller chunks. Most recently, in the last 10 years, their passage rate has actually started to even out. Historically, recurring had a much lower passage rate because of that open checkbook feel. But I think the sentiment has started to change and the data showing that non-recurring though still does have a higher passage rate, at least in the last 10 years. And again, it's not an indicator of future success, but it's data that we can draw on.
Question
Yeah.
for either you, Debbie, or you, Luke. I'm not sure who's gonna handle like community surveys, but is that question gonna be part of a community survey? What is, which do you prefer, recurring or non-recurring to the community?
Typically, the district has, in my experience, they've decided before they've gone out.
Correct.
Okay.
If you get to a survey, I think it's more of needs, and if you're tying it in with an operational, but if it's almost like a separate question if you're looking at operational or reoccurring. But
Okay.
hopefully we have that figured out before we get to the survey.
Okay.
There'll be a question of what the public would or would not understand about the
Right.
experiences, and all that type of question might, in my mind, is into another level of confused.
So most,
Keep it simple.
yeah, most often you've decided, and the sensitivity you're testing is more so the tax impact of different dollar amounts or types. And surveys do an excellent job of educating the community as well through the question. It's an opportunity to say, our boilers are 40 years old, they need to be replaced, would you support a referendum to replace the boilers? So it's a great opportunity, in addition to the education you're already doing, to provide that extra layer too. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So we hopped in your model. These numbers will change. I'm not going to say they might. This output may look familiar to you. The last time I was here, the last meeting, you were narrowing down the amount. So I looked back and I think we had 5, 6, 7 different scenarios. And so tonight we're just sharing 2. I hope you're not disappointed. But we really wanted to just share, again, you're not making a decision until months from now. But within the decision, you're going to say yes or no, do we go ahead with operations? If the answer is yes, what kind, how much, and the duration. So what we are showing here is our forecast. So we're assuming Governor Evers' proposal comes true, which is very likely that not all of it will come through. But we said, what if it all comes through and we let the referendum retire and we don't replace it? How does that impact our finances? And the answer is, in this forecast with these assumptions, you would already be in a sizable deficit already in 24-25. And that's,
What are, I can't see those numbers, what are those numbers?
yes,
43,888.
so a deficit of 463,000 already in 24-25, up to about 880,000 in the last year. Which is not surprising because in that 600,000 is going away. So we're saying we needed it years ago.
Right.
This is really just showing that it's still needed in part or in whole or maybe more.
And as you referenced, Debbie, the political side of this, Governor Evers' budget is, it's probably torn up and in the garbage can, right, by the JFC. So schools aren't going to get everything he asked for, so these numbers will most likely be significantly or to some degree worse, I would say.
We're doing a presentation tomorrow and we put the last biennial budget, the key financial proposals, and then the next slide crosses out all of this that didn't go through, and all but one were crossed off. So, we don't know, and so we have to plan for the ranges. The bottom scenario then is what if that 600,000 stays and we can see a slight surplus in 24-25, and then there is a slight deficit out in 27-28 that could be addressed via additional operational referendum dollars.
Are you adding any of
Reductions.
these potential projects into that second?
Not into these
I can't
numbers.
see it.
This is
This is
operational.
strictly
This is
operational.
operational.
Yep. Now,
No capital projects.
yeah, now part of the solution, and I'll talk about this when we get to that, you can address some of these projects in your operational budget if you have it.
That's what
But this is showing that there might be a small layer of some funds available in the first year, but it wouldn't be sizable.
Yeah.
I have my contacts, and that's a long ways away.
Yeah, I apologize, it was supposed to be right there, and it was supposed to be huge.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Sorry. I
Okay.
really apologize. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is just making sure we can turn on the lights and open the
Right,
doors.
this is strictly.
Keep us in operations.
Yep.
Correct.
And we still have the deficit,
Right,
Yes,
which
even
would
with the
show we
600,000.
truly need to,
Look at increasing the operational
Yeah,
number.
600 may not be enough.
Go to share,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can almost see.
So,
I didn't want to squint, so do that enough sometimes.
Any thoughts or questions or comments on the operational side?
I'm based upon just this very preliminary screen, if even with the 600,000 continuing from past where it is now, and at the end of that 5-year cycle, we're still in the hole again, then if we opt for an operational referendum incidental to capital, then it's gonna have to be more than 600,000 just to balance the books.
Yeah, correct.
Be very
So-
careful what you say
Potentially.
right now.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, potentially, yes.
everything is always subject to
Well,
change,
Yeah.
unseen.
But if we were to stop in time and have to make the decision today,
Right.
then yes. The good news is that we have several months where we can learn what the biennial budget is. We
Right.
can finalize this year.
But we're flying, we're shooting in the dark with a shotgun, you don't know what you're gonna hit, so.
So let's talk a little bit about the debt referendum. So that's the other kind of referendum we can go for, and according to DPI, something you haven't asked in the past and could be used as a solution to,
Except for this building.
This building.
This building was a capital referendum.
which was before they started tracking.
Tracking.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, before revenue limit, so it was.
1968.
That's right, that's right. So, a capital referendum is typically for specific things, but these specific things don't necessarily need to be addressed through a referendum. Boiler, for example, if you had surplus in your budget, you might be able to address one or two. But as you work through the list and you get to a new elementary school, for example, those costs generally go well beyond what your annual budget can maintain and need to go to referendum. And oftentimes, the combination of projects add up to a cost, such as what you heard tonight, 10 million or 7 million, where you just can't do that in your regular budget. So there are, as I mentioned, a couple of options. We have our operational funds. You do have a Fund 46, and so in the future, that could be an option for you to maintain some of these things. Most often, when you talk about projects of your size, we're talking about a borrowing of some sort. Fund 38 borrowing means you don't go to referendum, but then you're limited to $1 million without the petition process. You have to pay it back under those revenue limit dollars. So right now you have some Fund 38 debt that retires in a couple of years. When that goes away, it gives you more to spend in Fund 10. Your general operations, you can't use that levy in another way. And then the voter approved kind is where you go to referendum and you ask for that authority to borrow. And that then you can finance for up to 20 years. That's the statutory limit. And so you would spread it out and then you would levy to repay the loan for those, repay the loan. And so just an idea of your total school levy, you have these three components. The operation, or if you did that $1 million worth and repaid it, it would fit under the revenue limit, what the state controls with the formula. The referendum approved debt would fit outside of that window. Would be still part of the total levy, separate from the revenue limit. And again, I know some of this might be familiar with you. I think it's helpful to start at the beginning, especially because you're at the beginning of this process too.
Yep.
Okay. So common questions we get is, if we borrow, will we still be within our debt capacity? Many, and maybe you don't know, but school districts in Wisconsin are limited to their borrowing capacity. It's based on the property wealth in your district. And the reason they tie it to that is that you'll be taxing in order to pay it back. And so they limit, for a K-12 district, which you are, they limit you to 10%. And so if we used this year's equalized value and we multiply that out, it shows a total debt limit of $25 million. You have a little bit of Fund 38 debt, like I said, a couple of years left to pay on it, which represents about 1% of that. So you have a majority of your debt capacity remaining. And so based on the projects that CISA 10 proposed tonight, you could finance all of them and still be within your debt capacity limit. Another common question we get is, what about these interest rates? We've heard they've been going up. How does that impact us? We do have a scenario for you, but we wanted to share with you the 30-year trend. So we can see in the last year is up in the little snapshot in the right-hand corner. In the last year, they have risen, but as we look over the 30 years, we still are lower than we were 30 years ago. And so in a market like this, what that means is as we run scenarios for you, we just have to be more conservative. And so that if we know that you wouldn't borrow for another year or so, we're building in a cushion. So that if they do go up, we've accounted for that potential. Then of course, if it's less than what we're expecting, that's just better in the end. But it's always better to come back and say it's better than we thought than not quite as good. So it's still in the 30-year look, a favorable interest rate market, just not as favorable as it might have been a few years ago. So we wanted to share with you what might happen if we look at operations and debt in terms of the impact. So this is a hypothetical scenario. These are your numbers, and we based this on a $10 million borrowing. So it's not saying that one of the buildings added up to 10 million. It was a good round number to start us with at this point, knowing there's a long time between now and when you decide on what you might do. But the black bar represents your operational levy, and the dotted line represents everything to the left of what we know and is actual, and everything to the right is projected. And the blue represents that operational referendum authority that you have now that will be retiring. So we can see that the mill rate has decreased over the life of this last referendum, operational. If you move forward, you have the choice of operations or debt or both. And the pink bar represents the operations, saying let's just imagine that it carries forward at 600,000 and we leave that on top. So that part would stay pretty steady. And then we said, what might happen then if we layered a $10 million borrowing on top? And that's what the lighter color represents. And so if today, using our estimates of 2% property value growth after next year, our conservative interest rate, a 20-year borrowing, it would bring the mill rate back up to about where it was in 1920. So just an idea, one, to show you how the levies would work, and then two, to get your mind thinking about a potential impact of a borrowing such as 10 million. Am I explaining that okay?
I think so.
Okay. And again, as this moves forward, we start attaching numbers to this, and we start making it more and more detailed. Today's just our first look. So next steps. I know this is a lot of information tonight. One is to identify that election date. So our spring election in '24 is April 2nd. The timeline that Luke laid out was really helpful in guiding you to those decisions. The last date in which you would need to approve the resolution and forward it to the municipalities, they call it certified. If you went in April, would be January 23rd. And like Luke had suggested, we like to say have a pretty good idea in December, so you're not bringing it down to the last minute. But depending when the January meeting is, you could approve as late as January and still have it on that spring election.
This is a little bit of an aside, but did I see that the Seymour School District missed their deadline?
Yeah, I saw.
They missed their deadline for forwarding it to their local municipality, so they can't run a referendum.
They can't have it.
They can't run it.
I hadn't.
Oh my God.
That was in today's education news.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Seymour District, large district.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would it be
And-
all feasible to put this together so that we can have a presentation at the annual meeting in November?
Some form of this, certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Good idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
I can't remember if we did something like that.
And then
Community.
next step. So it's just deciding again, like Luke mentioned, operations, debt. We help with the numbers, so continuing to run scenarios on the operations side. helping to run additional scenarios on the debt side. So what if it's 7 million, or what if it's 2 million, or what if it's 14? And then within the operation, we'll also need to decide again, what kind, how much, how long. And all of those things start to take shape as we continue to move through the year. And then the third group that becomes really important in this process is bond counsel. They're the attorneys that help make sure that all your I's are dotted and T's crossed, and you've notified your municipalities, and you have the right agenda language on your.
Don't be like Seymour.
Are there limits on
You never want to be, sorry, you never want to be that example school. Poor Seymour.
Are there limits on how much in an operational referendum you can use for capital improvement?
There's not a limit. So, no, there's not a limit.
Okay, I appreciate the brevity.
Yeah. What other questions do you have? The last thing I didn't include that you may wonder later is, in Wisconsin, we can't say if this, then that on the ballot. In other states, you can. So if you do 2 questions, it would be the debt could pass and not the operations, or the operations could pass and not the debt, or neither, or both. So any of those combinations could happen. Some other states say, well, if the operations pass, then let us know about this.
That's my earlier question about pros or cons of one or the other,
Yeah.
or both.
Yep.
Anything, the more confusing it makes for the public, the greater the chance they're gonna want.
5-minute break.
Keep it simple. Simple and as straightforward and as plain as you can possibly make it.
Yeah, and
And
I just-
accomplish what you want to accomplish.
exactly. And that's why I stopped on your question. I know you're trying to scoot us out the door so you guys can take a break and move on.
No.
But,
No,
the reason why I hesitated on the answer to your question is there have been districts, Racine as an example, where they did an operational referendum. And part of those dollars, so let's imagine they did $1 million, portion of it was going to be used to pay back the loan, the Fund 38 loan, for projects like this. For you, because you have the low property value, it would result in higher tax impacts than what we showed. And so for you, issuing debt over the 20 years would be the most
Palatable.
and for your
Consumer
tax
friendly.
payers. Yeah.
Yep.
If you go that route, you have to make sure your operational extends for the life of the debt. So for Racine, it was a 10-year operational referendum. Longer.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's why I hesitated with the answer,
yeah,
but to be thorough.
okay.
Was this helpful?
Yeah.
Yes.
Very
Lot
helpful.
to think about.
Yeah, tonight was the kickoff with CISA and with Baird. Thank you so much. Much more, we're gonna get in the weeds in the next few months, but thank you for coming tonight and starting us off. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry about the technical.
No, you don't
Not your fault,
apologize. I
not
mean,
your fault at all.
you asked me if I had a connection and
We'll
I
take
said
5
I did.
and then resume.
And it worked really good.
I'm not sure if it can be
What's the
Yes, you too.
It's Gertrude.
These are leaving because I'm gonna sing advanced. Just so you know.
Long drive home.
He's like, I'm taking them all. No, I don't.
I'm like,
That's funny.
I'm just go home or I can stay for a party.
You know, if I was as close as you, I would say.
Her report's up next.
No, I'm from Flowbrook.
Oh, you can stay for my son. They're both from Chippewa Falls.
I kind of saw her look.
I usually just look down. I'll make it, I'm gonna make mine really short tonight.
I used to work in
Oh, so you're from, did you live in Clover or no, did you live around here?
I lived here when I did that, and, so I moved up here.
Thank you.
After I hung up, I was like.
With somebody in a neighboring community.
Oh, gosh.
They're expensive.
I thought that was.
Right next to each other, like they do here, and somebody says 98%.
Yeah.
7%. Oopsie.
Right, right.
But it's pretty operation.
Probably.
That's pretty dry.
Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Nothing she can do with
She
that.
bought to go see, Gaelic store.
It sure is nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, this was, we actually started with having a study session.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Progressive League, it's lighter now, yeah.
It's the band.
I think it's only covered 5
Oh, really?
didn't feel that.
No.
Okay.
I just, you know, I guess I'd never heard the 6 o'clock thing, so I guess I was just.
Oh, not too bad. Yeah, I mentioned that, I probably should say be here at 5:30, but I just, there's so much on the agenda for you. And, yeah,
My vision's better long way.
It was.
Mine is too, but
As
yeah,
always.
excellent.
Are you
Yeah.
in, where are you tomorrow?
I told them I was gonna sing and dance, you guys can stay.
You should.
Are you really gonna do
Nice to do some, bring your pom poms, do some cartwheels.
Kids doing good? Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah,
They're junior out another vision. Are they? Doing.
And they started at 7.
Don't know.
I'd lock the front door.
So they're gonna find out in the form.
Drive home an hour.
6 times?
That's exciting.
Oh, yeah, I'd be on the phone at 5, probably 6, yeah. That's a great song.
Character actors as much as anything.
Much more.
I think Harry Golden and
I'm trying to recall that.
And
Ray.
we had a long session.
So yeah, she lives in Milwaukee.
I know we did.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
Parents go there.
But he was in,
Oh, I thought you decided.
the apartment and.
So you're just kind of cast,
Well, I think they're from all over.
cast the Godfather, it had all these
We're like now at.
subordinate characters, and they were just so naughty, it was just such a great movie to watch.
Always.
Sting is back on Netflix this month. I may watch it again, I haven't seen it in 20 years, haven't seen it in like 20 years.
Yeah, I probably haven't watched it in that long
It's just,
time frame either.
it's just such, it's just such fun to see. There's a bunch of bad guys screwing each other. It's just, oh, God, time is out.
Shouldn't take too long after
Yeah,
that.
right. As President Kennedy used to say, we must move forward with great vigor.
Turn my phone on.
That music is.
Notifications.
I turned it off so that it wasn't going.
A lot of good information.
During meetings.
Yep.
Do the same thing because they're silent.
You needed to hear it.
Absolutely.
But I.
Yeah, the numbers are actually not pleasant numbers, but it's,
Yeah.
it's a shame that we have to.
Yeah.
They just now it's like the second half or the. I wasn't challenged.
I just, yeah, I've thought many times, we can use this time and creativity
It's right.
to educate our children instead of having to ask for money.
Yes.
But it's the world we're in, that's where we are. Yeah, that's where we are.
Okay,
All right,
you ready?
we are.
Well, let's, Lisa,
Ready?
do we need to do anything
All right.
for the recording?
Thank you. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I don't think anybody touched it. We're ready.
Go ahead, John.
All right, we're moving on. Next item on the agenda is elementary principal report. Principal Christie.
Okay, Lisa, is my technology working? Are we ready to go?
No.
Just joking.
Good question, good question.
I can make quick copies of it.
Yeah.
Alright, so, we have had some fun these past couple weeks at the elementary school. We had Read Across America Week. Some very special guest readers each day, including, our very own Mrs. McGrath and Mr. Bina, who came to read to our kiddos. Each day we had, Mr. Dassow, come one day. We had a day where we had, the school-wide read-in. We had, we combined that with, Mrs. McLaughlin did a American Heart Association Jump for Heart, so we had some glow sticks, so we had a read-in the dark in the gym. We had a silly sock day, crazy color day, a bunch of things for Read Across America Week. And it ended with a, play put on, a Cat in the Hat play by the teachers. If you go on the Facebook page, I'm sure you saw all the pictures of all of that, so.
Sorry, not to interrupt, but in our presence, we do have thing 1 and thing 2.
Yes.
I can't remember which is 1 or 2,
Yes,
but
yes.
they're behind one another here.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yep. Stabby.
Yeah.
And then we also, had, Emily Frizzell, who is a senior this year, as part of National Honor Society for her February project, organized a penny war with our elementary students, and, we did that for the Griffith family, and a National Honor Society kids came over every day, and Mrs. Wilhorn and Mrs. Dorhorst helped with the collecting of all the change and the counting of all the change and the keeping track of the points, and penny wars are a lot of work.
It is.
And a whole lot of change. And our final amount that we raised was $3,470 for the Griffith family. So we had a presentation this week where for the whole school where we presented them with the check, and we all wore orange and purple, because purple is Scarlett's favorite color, so we wore orange and purple, and orange is the support for leukemia color and port colors. So it was a nice little presentation in support of the family. So
Very well done.
yeah, some good things going on there.
Yes.
So yeah, so that's a lot of things going on. Good things.
Very busy, but
Busy.
good.
Positive.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you.
thank you.
Right. Moving on to middle high school principal report.
You're not gonna be sad, but my report is kind of short because I had a cancellation. Perfect timing. So I'm just gonna update you a little bit what's going on in the building. And give a hats off to our counseling department, Miss Moore and Miss Asham-Renner did ACT testing, and I guess I just take it for granted that everything's gonna go smoothly, and it did. Yesterday, our juniors tested, and it was one of the first groups that came out, and I was there greeting them at the door. I'm like, how did it go? How did it go? You know, just they're like, great, great, good. And I'm like, oh, because usually they come out and they're just, I don't know, it was just a good feeling. They said they did well and they were excited. Today I went to my principal's meeting, and I guess that's when I realized out of about the, 17 that were sitting there, we decided to go do the paper version one more year, just before we went with the online. And the people who went online yesterday had a mess. Like they had their whole room full, 5 people, your kids couldn't get on, they waited 42 minutes online to get help, and the person hit the button, and then the 5 went on. 6 of their kids are coming today to do makeups, and so they changed platforms, and there was some struggles, and like some of you educators, like when it's done, and Miss Moore and Mr. Ashman walked out, it was like, yes, one more year, like we did it, it's done. So we're done with that. Any comments on that? Everything right?
I mean, we're finishing up some testing for kids with accommodations, but it went well, and honestly, my vote was to switch to online, and Mrs. Ashburner talked me out of it, and I yesterday received an email from ACT about the disaster that online was, and I forwarded it to her, and I said, thank you. So.
Yeah. And Ms. Moore is continuing, further testing. This is kind of her big month. The other thing that we're doing is we've talked to all the teachers and our scheduling is moving forward. It's probably the fastest or quickest that we've done that. Right now they've got middle school kind of all scheduled in, and now Ms. Moore met with the juniors and seniors, talked to them about, and I think what's on here that they're gonna
Start college
Start
now.
college.
Start college now. So she's talked to the juniors and seniors about all their opportunities. Like I said, we've got middle school already scheduled. She's met with the juniors, seniors, and now we're ready to do high school. And our goal is before every teacher walks out of the building, they'll know exactly what they're doing and have a schedule in hand. Because of COVID, we struggled with that and changing the schedule. So this is a big goal of ours this year.
Hex system make that easier?
Does the what?
Does the use of hexes or tries rather than semesters enhance the scheduling?
Yes and no. It just offers the kids more opportunities. It's more juggling on our part, probably. Mhm.
The kids are happier because they get more offerings.
Any questions?
Good, Dan.
Quick, short for me.
Thank you.
Oh, and I was gonna tell you, the kids kind of did it, talked about it, but the solo ensemble was like a crazy chaos, but a good crazy chaos. Like parents and volunteers came out of the woodwork. It was so well organized. Actually, I struggled because I had a little program and I was running to the rooms and they were so ahead, like, cause some people didn't show or whatever, or what have you. But they were so organized and everything ran ahead of schedule and we get so many compliments on our building and, nothing went wrong that I heard. It was phenomenal. So Tammy P, Emily Anderson, our new band teacher, and Jeff helped. Like those three kind of ran it. And if you haven't voted, I can send you the link tonight. Emily is running in the Hyde Music competition, and right now we are in first place. And you can get a violin or a trumpet. You get to pick. There's like all these prizes, and we're in first place right now. So I will send you the link, or I'll have her send you the link
How
so you
many
can
times
vote.
can you vote?
Once a day.
Once a day? Okay.
Before I go to bed, I'm like, oh gosh, I
I
didn't
think we
vote.
got the link through, maybe I was looking
Get
on
that
Facebook, I think.
puppy out.
Yes.
That's how I won the
Well,
Jan
voted
Brett
out.
contest once a day. So
Absolutely,
let's
yeah.
do it.
And I can't believe it's small, we're winning. I went
We're
through all 5
beating
pages.
Division I schools
Okay.
because
Yeah.
we care.
Yes,
So I'll have her send you the link.
yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Pass it on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Right, questions or comments from people in attendance? None?
Nobody's gonna say a word.
Alright. Moving on to number 10, consider approval of minutes of the past meeting of February 8th.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Number 11, consider approval of financial reports. Do we have some gifts?
I have one gift to report. Mrs. McGrath donated 2 Jan Brett books to the elementary school library. Thank you, Mrs. McGrath.
Thank you, Kathy.
And I have one budget revision to report. I did an update to the Perkins grant. There was some additional funding that needed to be added. So I just did a budget revision to reflect that $412.
All right. With that, we'll do a roll call on approval of the financial report.
Leo.
Aye.
Me, yes, for me. Dana.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
And Kathy.
Aye.
Who motioned to approve? Motion and second.
Oh,
I moved.
yeah.
Dana
he
moved? Okay.
Yep. And Leo seconded.
Lisa seconded,
You
yeah.
heard that right.
Yeah.
I heard it.
And the motion carries 5-0.
Let it be noted.
So financial reports are approved. No unfinished business. New business, consider approval of 2023-24 Seats of 5 service contract.
Moved.
Second. Whomever, doesn't matter, Lisa, whoever you
Motion
put
and a
in.
second, any discussion?
I just one quick question. I was just curious what, and I don't mean to hold up the meeting. We're just going out of here. Is that comparable to what we spent on them last year?
It's an increase, not in quantity of service, but in their costs. Their
Yeah.
costs have increased. They gave competitive raises to a lot of their employees.
Sure.
So
Just
curious when I was going through it, that's all.
Sure.
Okay.
When you consider what those services would cost us if we had to hire.
Correct.
Right, no, I'm not at all
It's just-
arguing it,
They increase their
I
salaries.
was just curious if it
So,
was.
and
yeah.
the insurance, that was the other
Total
thing,
package.
because I impressed we did.
It does kind of take you aback when you see it spelled out like that on a billing.
Yeah.
Right.
You're kind of like gulp, but it's what you gotta do.
We met
It's the
with
price of
Jeremy
doing
Beal
business.
in person, what day?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, thank you. We met in person with him and he, he explained that to us. Salary and benefits.
All right, with that, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. Next, consider approval of Start College Now applications for fall 2023.
It was great to see how many there
A lot.
were.
Yep, move approval.
Second it.
Motion by Dana, seconded by Carrie.
Right
Any,
back, Kevin.
any other discussion?
Any chance that we could at some point find ourselves an RN who could teach a CNA class as a part of our health curriculum?
At a CISA rate, maybe, I think it's probably just as efficient and effective to have them go up to mid-state at this point, but
Okay.
we can look into it.
Well, just thought, it seems to be a hot button item. A lot of these people are interested in health careers and emergency medicine, and there's certainly no lack of jobs for entry-level health workers, so.
We toured Mid-State 3 weeks ago with eighth graders and we heard a presentation from the classroom where they teach CNA courses, so it's kind of right in our backyard up there.
With that, take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Next item, consider approval of co-curricular contract. John, how do you say it? Session, assistant baseball coach.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the next one is Tanya Beaver, middle school track coach.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is approved. Next item is first reading of Neola policies.
Once again, I've sent you the short and abbreviated versions of the policy updates. Each of these are recommended by Neola, reviewed by Mr. Laval and I, and vetted by Davis and Keelthal, Rennie, Lewis, and Lacey, and are highly recommended that we adopt them.
So move.
Second.
Oh, well, it's
There's
just
nothing
the
to
first,
move.
It's
First
we're gonna do that
First
next
reading.
month.
We have to do it second reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's any questions, you ask them now or.
And wonderful
Or
that we can do it that way, Jim.
Yeah.
We would have been here till 10.
There's no need.
Isn't it 10? I thought it was 10.
These keep
You
us in
wanna do that
compliance.
again, Carrie? You bring the treats.
Right.
Okay, we don't need to do anything for that. Okay, now, opportunity of individual board member comments. Start with Leo.
Election's coming up. Everybody make sure you vote. Off-year election cycles are many times less well attended. We had a wonderful turnout for the February primary, considering there's about just shy of 1,000 voters in November.
30%.
And we had 30%, which is 3 times the 10 to 12% average. So we did good in the primary. Let's hope we show a similar level of community participation in the April 4th election. Vote for whoever you want, but make sure you vote.
Gary.
Again, nice to see all the kids here, the students here. Great to hear that the solo ensemble went so well. And for us to host that, on top of that, that was very nice. Excellent presentation by Jeff and his students. That's pretty cool. But I mean, they're pretty young, talented kids, and we can continue that. I think that would be great. That's it.
Dana.
I just gonna ask if it's something we put on the agenda for next month. I happened to be down in my hometown and remember that back when I was in college, at Beloit College, they did a program to try to get people from the community to come on campus and see the facilities, because there wasn't a lot of I'm like a handful of people who both graduated from Beloit Memorial and graduated from Beloit College. So what they did was they called it Saturday Morning Scholars, but what it is a presentation or lecture series, different subjects, people from the community do presentations and such. The idea being getting people from the community in to see our building and sell the school district. And so I thought that I'd like to try to organize something like that, starting like in September and having either 4 or 6 Saturday mornings and doing something like that. And that's why I was making the inquiries about funding, is just in case we have any expenses that come in, because this is a community outreach function.
Sure. Fund 80.
Yeah, that's what the basis was of
Okay.
my questions were being asked.
We were wondering. Makes sense,
Okay.
makes sense.
So, I just think as we're talking about opening up and getting people within the area to start thinking about opportunities and open enrollment, the more people we can get in the building to see what we have to offer, the better off we would be.
Absolutely.
Years ago, the technical school used to run outreach classes, like when Steve Day was the tech ed guy here, they used to have mid-state classes for woodworking or metal shop or whatever that generation of technology had. They were mid-state classes offered through our facility, and it got people into the building. Mid-state used to do a travel log series, pre-internet, before you could stream things.
Yes.
They'd have a program on a foreign country, and they'd show a film and somebody who'd been there, and there'd be a talk. That's 40 years ago, but
But still ways to get people in the building.
that type of general interest, attractiveness speaks to exactly what you're talking about. Anything we can do to get the 2/3 or 3/4 of the citizens of the district who don't have kids in this system to come into our buildings and see what we do and what we have and what they're paying for. And it'll give them a sense of ownership, and it'll give them a sense of use. And as we're coming to a referendum a year down the road, none of that's a bad thing. It's a great idea.
We are doing a few one-offs, but nothing in a prolonged series. We have our Lions Club pancake breakfast this Sunday. I invite anyone listening to my voice right now. I believe it's from 8 till noon this Sunday in the high school cafeteria. The pancakes should be outstanding, because I'm staying away from the grill. I'm just cleaning dishes, I think. So 8 to noon this Sunday. Next Thursday, I'm hosting Wisconsin Rapids Rotary Club in our high school as well. Sunrise Rotary meeting at 7 a.m. and we're going to be doing a little tour of the building. And we've had PEEF meetings in the building as well. We had one in December, I believe, but something consistent, something to open up to a broader base of citizens would certainly be great. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Kathy.
I am just so proud of both buildings and all the wonderful things that we do, and I know how much work goes into any of these things. They don't just happen, and I think we're wonderful.
Great staff.
All right.
Great staff.
Yeah, I thought it was great that we had the music here tonight. I love that. And also I attended the presentation for the Griffith family, the Penny War, and I was also proud to see everyone come together and be a part of that and raise so much money for Scarlett and Griffith family. So it's really awesome. And that's all I have. So next item is establish future board meetings. Wednesday, April 12th and Wednesday, May 10th. Hopefully everyone can make those.
I will just let you know that if I may be late, I should be back. I'm scheduled to be in Chicago again. So, I think the last time I came in ran a wing and a prayer. But I'll be there eventually.
Just let us know, yeah. All right, call for adjournment.
So move. Second.
We are adjourned.
Thank you. Lengthy, but all
Thank you
good.
for that.
Yes.
Yeah.